Self-publishing a book can be really challenging, but I'm going to share with you 5 tips that I've learned during my journey as an author. If you're new to the channel, I create books and I publish them on Amazon KDP. Now, before I turned my hands to creating things like colouring books and activity books, I actually began as an author. And my journey involved writing science fiction. I created 4 books in total and 1 short story, and I self-published them all on Amazon KDP. Now, along the way, I did a lot of things wrong, I did a few things right, but with every book that I published, I learned something new. And that's the beauty of self-publishing. You're always learning, always evolving, and that's because I'm taking the learnings that I've used, wrapping them up, and making the best product possible. As I was looking back on my journey as an author, it had some highs, it had some lows, but there were 5 key things that I learned that I'm going to get into now. First things first is the importance of your book cover. Unless you have a massive audience who are going to buy your book no matter what, you're basically trying to reach strangers and getting them to purchase your book. The first impression that they're likely going to see is your book cover. And especially if you're self-publishing on Amazon KDP, which is where the majority of people would self-publish, the way that consumers tend to shop is they'll either search for a search term and then scroll through the results, or they'll be on a book that they like and then there will be the sponsored products underneath. In both of these scenarios, the way that people are going to judge your book is by that book cover. So if you're proud of your books, make sure not to scrimp on the book cover. It's extremely important. You can get some pre-mades. I even sell some on Etsy. So if you're interested in, having a look at some affordable pre-made book covers, click the link in the description below. But you can also use services like Fiverr to get affordable book covers made for you from scratch. I'm going to do a quick live test of this on Amazon and just show you what I mean. So if we come over to Amazon and we have a little look around for some sci-fi books for teens, these are the ones that are likely getting a lot of sales. That's why they're near the top of the search results. Scrolling down a little bit, you've got a book here where, in my opinion, the book cover isn't great. So if we click on that book, we can scroll down and have a look at the bestseller rank. And so the bestseller rank for this book is just under 100,000. So despite that book ranking really well for that search term, which is a very highly searched keyword, the book itself isn't really selling that well. Comparing that to a book nearby that's got a much better cover, having a look at this one, the book cover is a lot better. It utilizes the rule of thirds. You can see it's got a boy and a dog on the front cover. Still not fantastic, but it's better. Scrolling down, that is 35,000 in books. So it's selling more copies. And you could probably go through Amazon and do your own research on this. But generally, if your book cover stands out and you're ranking organically for search terms, you've got every chance of making more sales than the other books out there. Tip number 2 is a huge pain point when you're self-publishing, and that's the need for editing. So if I was breaking it out, and you could go further than this, but there tends to be 2 general ways of editing your book. There's line editing when you're going through and looking for mistakes. And then there's developmental editing when you're looking at, plot holes, character development, making sure that your book's as strong as it could be from like a story and narrative point of view. And ideally, everyone should do both of these edits. However, each one of those costs money, and when you're self-publishing your own book, maybe you don't want to invest hundreds into either of those areas. So there are ways that you can do it for free or for cheap. Now, these come with risks. And this is what I did, and this is why I think my books probably hit a bit of a ceiling and they didn't go any further, because they weren't up there in terms of quality with all of the books they were competing with. And a huge part of that is down to the lack of editing that I did on the book. I used Grammarly Premium for line editing to try and remove as many mistakes as possible. But now also in 2024, going into 2025, there's AI out there that you can utilize as well. So let's go over to ChatGPT and I'll show you how you can do this for yourself. So all you need to do here is head on over to ChatGPT and ask it to edit your book. It's important to include what tense it is, whether it's British English, American English. But all you need to do then is copy and paste a chapter of your book in there, and ChatGPT will do its magic and fix it for you. So let's do a little test. I'm going to take a few pages from my prologue of The United World. All I do is copy and paste it in here. And then within 30-40 seconds, ChatGPT will have an updated version for me to take and put back into my book. So straight away, you can see here that they've fixed one thing right at the beginning. So I've put in years to pass, and they've got in years to come, which is much better. ChatGPT and AI has its limitations, but if you are really struggling with money for an edit, it's worthwhile doing this. Just, I wouldn't trust it 100%. So I'd probably try and utilize multiple tools, maybe try doing a line edit in ChatGPT, but then also going on to Grammarly and looking through that. But then in terms of a developmental edit, that's where I think it's really worthwhile paying for an editor. Without that, without looking into plot holes, without looking at where your book could be stronger, I think you're really limiting yourself on how successful your book could become. Tip number 3 for self-publishing your book is the importance of marketing. Now, there are free ways of doing this as well as paid advertising. But at the very, very least, you should be utilizing social media and email to try and get people to purchase your book, especially when it's launched. The way Amazon works is when your book is launched, it will have a small boost at the beginning of your book's life cycle. And now what Amazon wants to see is that book is going to sell. If it sells, it'll start rising up the rankings for keywords and start showing in different areas on Amazon to try and get people to purchase it. But if you get no sales, it's going to very, very quickly drop off those pages and you're going to get no sales. So what I would suggest is when you first launch your book, you want to drive as many sales as possible to your book. And I would do this via social media. So try and do some TikTok ads, some Instagram reels. If you've got a following yourself, make sure you're reaching out to them. And then you can also do things like email swaps. So what I mean by that is finding authors in a similar genre to you and doing a newsletter swap where they promote your book to their audience and then you promote their book to your audience. So you've got every chance of getting a few more sales and picking up a few more readers. So those are the organic ways to market your book. But the thing that I learned is that it's important on Amazon to use ads. Because at the end of the day, if you're putting your book on Amazon with the hundreds of thousands of other books out there, it's so hard to cut through and make sales. And the way that you're going to make those sales is by using advertising to put your book at the top of page 1 and then get people to see it, get them interested, and then hopefully they'll purchase it. So when it comes to advertising, I think give yourself a little budget. Maybe it's $100, $200, however much you want to spend on advertising that book. I would recommend utilizing it within the first month of your book launch. That's where Amazon likes to see those sales, almost as a kind of proof of concept that it can sell. And this is where I've gone wrong in the past. So make sure you're advertising and marketing your book effectively, especially in that first month. And that brings me on to tip number 4. And that's the importance of making a series. And that's why some of the best sellers on Amazon are like within series that have 15 or 20 books in them. And the reason is it's very, very hard to get a good return on investment from your advertising on Amazon. So if you're writing a standalone book like I did with my first book, Watchers, you're likely going to end up spending more money on advertising than you would get on your royalties back. So let's say I get $2 for every sale of my book. However, when I use ads, it costs me $4 to get a sale. That means for every sale that I'm getting using advertising, I'm actually spending $2. Now, when you have a series, that completely changes. Because what tends to happen here is a certain percentage of people who read your book will then go on to buy the next book in the series. So let's say 20% of people will read your next book. From that next book, you'll also get $2 of income. And then it goes on and goes on and goes on. And therefore, you start to break even on your advertising when people start buying book 2, book 3, book 4. And then the more books that they buy, the more money that you make. Then if you get to say 10 books in a series, you can be more aggressive with your advertising for book 1 because you're not just trying to sell that book 1, you're also trying to sell the whole series. You're trying to sell all 10 of those books. So you know if you spend $4 to get a sale, there's every chance that you're going to make, $10, $20 back on that ad spend. And then my 5th and final tip is the importance of having an email list. Now, why do you need one of these as an author? It's not to tell people, what you're up to in your everyday life. You can talk to your email list however you want. But the main importance of having your email list is so that you're not reliant on using Amazon to reach your existing audience. So let's say 1,000 people buy your first book. Maybe 100 of them will sign up to your email newsletter because they really like your writing and they want to see what's next from you. Now, in order to reach those 100 people, all you need to do is email them. It's free, it's easy, and then there's a likelihood they're going to purchase from you in the future. Now, if you hadn't have built that email list, in order to reach those 100 people again, you're going to have to use social media, you're going to have to use advertising, and it's basically starting from scratch every time you have a new book. So what you want to do is try and grow a community, whether that's an email newsletter list like I recommend, or you could do something like a Facebook group as well. But making sure that you own that relationship with your potential customers, it gives you the power instead of putting the power in Amazon's hands. So if you're looking to self-publish on Amazon, those are my 5 tips. But I'm sure I've missed some important advice. So if you've got anything to add, please drop a comment below. Okay, thanks for checking out the video, and I'll see you in the next one.